Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. You can't have missed the earthquake at 12:35 this afternoon or the sense of panic it's created. It coincides with the report in The Hindu that there could be a major earthquake in Uttarakhand anytime between now and the next 50 years. How accurate are such predictions, and what should one do when an earthquake is actually happening? Those are the issues we touch on in part 2. But first, with both the land acquisition bill and the GST bill sent to parliamentary committees, has the government suffered a serious setback, or is it just a delay rather than a reversal? And what impact will this have on the government's image as it approaches its first anniversary in office? That's our first discussion tonight. And with me now to discuss the legislative setback is BJP spokesperson GVL Narasimha Rao, Congress spokesperson and MP Abhishek Singhvi, Akali Dal MP Naresh Gujral, BJD MP Kalikesh Singh Deo, and the founding editor of TheWire.in, Siddharth Vardarajan. Mr. Narasimha Rao, with two key bills, land acquisition and GST, sent to different committees and therefore at least postponed till the monsoon session of Parliament, would you accept this is a setback for the government in legislative terms, but it's also a setback for your image as a government that delivers as you approach your first anniversary?
I certainly don't think so, because we have made our best effort to get these bills passed in the current session, budget session itself. There was nothing lacking on the part of the government, but certainly I think the cooperation was not forthcoming from the Congress party on the GST bill, which was actually deliberated for 2.5 years in the standing committee, thereafter consulted with all the state governments. But I think the government possibly felt, rather than pushing it through now, building a consensus on a bill like GST would not be a problem if you allow a little more time.
Okay.
So this has been referred to select committee, which is likely to present its report in the very first week of the monsoon session. So I still hope that we will still be able to meet the deadline or the target of GST being unveiled from 1st of 2016.
You know, Abhishek Singhvi, for a variety of reasons, Congress has given the impression that it's determined to delay both bills. Yesterday, you even held up the Rajya Sabha over the Gadkari issue. Do you as a party believe that the decision to send one bill to a joint committee and the other bill to a select committee is some sort of victory for Congress? Is that how you as a party perceive it? Because that's the impression you've given the media.
No, I don't think we perceive it like that. Firstly, we don't treat it as an ego issue. Our objection to the land bill is deep, ideological, fundamental. Second, we do perceive it as a reflection of the government's very, very enlarged and completely non-understandable ego. Also, the two objections are different. I think with some amount of give and take in the committee, the GST should be in a much better position in the next session, because there are some 7-8 points of very great specificity. But certainly we have seen no movement of a fundamental kind by the government on the land bill, which seems to see it as an ego issue.
Okay.
Yes, we see it as an exposure of the government. And let me tell you one last thing, Karan. It's not enough that the Congress takes it up as an ego point and I can obstruct you. The Congress, even in the Rajya Sabha, doesn't have numbers on its own. These objections have a lot of resonance cutting across party political lines, including beyond the UPA. Well, and that is the point the government is missing, and it is missing the point outside of Parliament as well.
Let's in fact come to these two bills, Naresh Gujral, one by one. I want to start with the land bill. I'll come to GST separately. Now, you've heard, Mr. Narasimha Rao, that the government did its best, he says, in trying to get the land bill passed. Do you really believe the government handled the Rajya Sabha properly? I want to quote to you what you said to Scroll.in on the 30th of April. There is arrogance in the BJP, their floor management is extremely poor, and they have failed to accept that they don't have a majority in the Rajya Sabha. So on the land bill, do you think the BJP could have handled the Rajya Sabha more efficiently, in a more accommodating fashion, and got a better result?
Karan, unfortunately on the land bill, I think the position has hardened on both sides a bit too much. And some kind of flexibility will have to be shown by both sides if this bill has to see the light of the day. The Congress's position is that what they had passed last time, they do not want to budge from it. Clearly, going by what Mr. Rahul Gandhi had to say in the parliament today and what Mr. Jairam Ramesh also has been articulating. Well, quite frankly, that is a bill which is totally, an act which is totally convoluted. I've said it before, if you follow that act, not 1 acre can be acquired to set up industry or for irrigation or for roads or for any other purposes. So I don't agree with the rigid stand that the Congress has taken. But I think NDA also needs to be a little more flexible. More so, because whether we like it or not, a perception has been created that this bill is not very farmer friendly. And no political party can afford to have that perception.
Okay, that's a very honest answer. So you do believe that, in fact, in terms of handling the Rajya Sabha on the land bill, the BJP government could have been more efficient, effective and more accommodating, and it therefore could have got a better result. I'm right in that assumption, aren't I, Naresh Gujral?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I am indeed, yes. I am asking you.
Yes. No, look, it's not a question of being more accommodating. I think once now it goes to the select committee, before that, before the meetings take place, I feel that NDA needs to meet. We need to be very clear as to how far we can go. We also cannot take a totally rigid position. I think there will have to be some give and take, but I do hope that Congress also responds in a similar manner.
Kalikesh Singh, on the land bill, your party, the BJD, is literally playing games. On the 28th of April, your Lok Sabha leader, Bhartrihari Mehtab, told the Hindustan Times, and I'm quoting, "We welcomed the land bill in the Lok Sabha. We even said we are happy with it. But happiness doesn't mean we will support it. We will oppose the land bill when it comes in Parliament." Now, I don't understand how you can say you're happy with something and you like it, and yet say you'll oppose it when there's a chance to vote for it. Unless, of course, your intention is to play politics with the country and the economy. And that's what I suggest you're doing.
There's no question of that, Karan. I think we've been absolutely clear. In fact, the Chief Minister has been absolutely clear that the land bill in its current form cannot be supported by the BJD. There were 5 amendments that the BJD had proposed, 4 of which have been accepted by the BJP in its new form of the land bill. One amendment which allows for a long-term participation of those displaced or affected in lieu of profits and shareholding. This amendment has not been accepted, and until that amendment is accepted, the BJD cannot and will not support the land bill in the form that it is today, and there's no contradiction or confusion about that.
In which case, what did Mr. Mehtab mean on the 20th of April when he told the Hindustan Times, "We are happy with it"?
You will have to ask Mr. Mehtab, Karan. I can't read his mind or speak for him.
But he's your leader.
I can only speak for the party.
He's your leader. You're a Lok Sabha MP. He's your Lok Sabha leader.
I don't know what context he said what he said, but I can't speak for him personally, and I wasn't in that situation. I can tell you what the party stands for, and the party is absolutely and unequivocally clear that it will not support the land bill until the 5th Amendment is accepted.
All right, someone should make that clear to Mr. Mehtab as well and bring him into the loop. It will be a great help for him, I'm sure. On the land bill for a moment still, Siddharth Varadarajan, the BJP hopes that the joint committee will give its report in the early days of the monsoon session, and then even if the Rajya Sabha votes against the land bill, they believe that they'll be in a perfect position to call a joint sitting and pass the amendments there. So from their perspective, the land bill, and I'm talking specifically about the land bill, is at worst delayed by a couple of months, but its passage eventually will happen. Do you agree with that sense that the BJP has on that issue?
The political and economic cost of this strategy is not very high, quite frankly. You know, from Mr. Modi's point of view, the ordinance will be repromulgated, obviously, I think after May 13th. And then you have this arrangement where you are, in a way, communicating not so much to the opposition, but to farmers, I suppose, or the country at large, that you're trying to go the extra mile to address objections that the Congress and other parties are raising. The strategy at the end of the day is still the same. You will have to have a joint session of Parliament and push this thing through. And that's, I don't see any possibility of the joint committee producing
Quite right.
a magical consensus.
So you're then agreeing.
You know, I don't think
You're agreeing then with the BJP position that the worst on the land bill is the delay till such time as the joint sitting happens sometime in the middle of or after the monsoon session.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, you know, there's no skin off the BJP's back, because, as I said, it gets to re-promulgate the ordinance. So there's no change in law in the interim, and at the end of the day, they will push the bill through. I don't think the BJP will accept the amendments that the BJD or other parties want to move. But you know, at the end of the day, they have a majority in a joint sitting, and that's what will happen.
Let's then come, Mr. Narasimha Rao, to the GST. Now, this bill also will not pass till the monsoon session at the very least. But in this instance, does the delay till the monsoon session mean that, in fact, GST will not roll out on the 1st of April 2016? Because that, if it happens, would be a critical hit to your reform agenda.
Karan, I think we have been trying our best to really push all the economic legislative agenda in the government, in the parliament, and people and the whole world sees the commitment that this country, this government has demonstrated. We have certainly not being able to pass it in this session does not automatically mean that we will miss the April 2016 deadline. I think we still can catch it. I think...
How? Can you explain that to me? Because your party has publicly said that if you don't pass it in this session, you will miss 1st April 2016. How do you believe you can still catch it?
I think there are certainly the government, that's a strategy that the government will have to evolve. So we will have to, I think in the very first week, one possibility could be, I'm only speculating, to advance the monsoon session by a few weeks. That could possibly give you some additional time in letting the state governments, state assemblies pass the bill. So I think there are many possibilities, but I think government will make every sincere effort to try and meet the deadline of the target that the government has set for itself.
All right.
Because this bill has phenomenal, I think, implications, and it has
you make a very important point there. Although you've done it only speculatively, that there is a possibility the monsoon session could be advanced so that, in fact, you have sufficient time in hand for the state assemblies to pass what is, in fact, a constitutional amendment. Abhishek Singhvi, GST was originally a Congress proposal. Secondly, as Arun Jaitley said in Parliament, it's been with various parliamentary committees for 2.5 years. Third, practically everyone accepts that it's critical for economic growth. Even the left accept that. Yet you seem to be holding it up either because you want to use it as a lever to force Nitin Gadkari's resignation, or because you want certain minor clarifications and therefore you want to send it to a parliamentary committee. And I put it to you that the country will turn around and say that you've played politics at the cost of the economy, at the cost of growth. You won't be rewarded for this, you could be penalized.
The country will certainly say that about the 2.5-year delay caused to GST by the BJP on much more frivolous objections and non-cooperation by each BJP ruled state. That's fact. That's history recorded. It will also, the country will also look poorly upon the leaders of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha fully endorsing land bill when they were in the opposition as the BJP and now doing something else. But let me tell you, having said that, we have raised some very specific objections. We are not at all opposed in the same ideological fundamental sense to the GST as we are to the land acquisition changes proposed. Those changes which we are proposing for GST relate in particular to states' concerns and to issues like exclusion of petrol and other major products. Why did they have to go to a parliamentary select committee?
Now, why could they not have been sorted out on the floor of either of the two houses?
Because that's an unwieldy process. That's not a practical process, and that is the view of 3 major parties in the Rajya Sabha, and I don't think it takes too much time. If the government doesn't stand on ego, and if these 3 parties, the AIDMK, the left and the Congress together have a fairly large number in Rajya Sabha, it will take less than a month for it to come back in the monsoon session, and I think many of the changes are very, very pointed and narrow and can be done.
Naresh Gujral, the truth is that today on GST, Congress is doing to the BJP what the BJP earlier did to the UPA. Basically, You're disrupting the House just as they did. And earlier, Arun Jaitley has actually gone on record to say that disruption is a legitimate parliamentary tactic. Now, when it's the BJP's turn to be disrupted, do you get the feeling Mr. Jaitley is hoisted by his own petard?
Well, Karan, unfortunately, you are absolutely right. This is exactly the way things are. Actually, this bill is a done deal. There is nothing really, slight tinkering may be done by the select committee, but I don't see any major changes happening in the bill. And I also know that a very large section of the Congress leadership in the Rajya Sabha wanted it passed, but then there was opposition from certain other quarters, so it's been sent to a select committee. I'm not very worried about 1st of April deadline. I think the government will be able to meet it because states will walk that extra mile to pass the bill.
Okay. Where do you stand, Kalikesh Singh Deo, as a party on this bill? Because yours is one of the votes that the BJP needs. Yours is one of the states that would have to clear this bill once Parliament passes it. Your Chief Minister doesn't hide the fact that he's entirely in support of GST. But newspapers keep saying that yours is a party that's keen that this bill go to a select committee. So is there confusion in your thinking? Or is the Chief Minister saying something for public consumption, whereas the party privately says something else?
Not at all, Karan. We are completely in support of the GST. Whatever suggestions that we had, we moved some amendments when the voting was happening in Lok Sabha itself. But when those amendments didn't go through, we supported the GST bill in the form that the government introduced it in. Yes, there was a feeling amongst our members that they should go in for some more scrutiny with the select committee or standing committee. Even when the government didn't agree to that, we voted for the bill. So there is no question about our intent in supporting or implementing GST. We are completely for that. However, we can express opinions and suggest to the government some other methods or alternatives. If the government doesn't listen, doesn't mean we're not going to vote against them. In the case of GST, I can tell you they are going to support it wholeheartedly.
You know, Siddharth Varadarajan, in the case of GST, do you get the feeling that informed public opinion could come to the conclusion that the parties that are determined to send this bill to a select committee, even though it's been in front of parliamentary committees for 2.5 years, are parties that are playing politics at the cost of the economy, at the cost of growth, at the cost eventually of the country? In other words, their stand might not meet the persuasive, might not be accepted by public opinion. Public opinion may see it as putting politics before policy, before country.
Quite right. Unfortunately for the Congress, which is delaying the GST itself as a subject is highly esoteric. I don't think the layperson fully understands, but what she knows is that the Congress party in its day had said once GST comes in, this will give a huge boost to national income. And the BJP is now saying the same thing. So from their point of view, Abhishek may be right that the Congress has very serious amendments to move, but they are simply not in a position to get their point of view across in a way that will be intelligible for the average citizen. And all that they're going to see is that, look, you were once for it, now you insist on making changes. The BJP, yes, was wrong to oppose it in the day, but now that they have come on board and want to push it through, why on earth are you delaying it? So I think this is the political game that the Congress can only lose. I can't see what are these great changes that they're going to push through which will somehow endear them to the wider citizenry who anyway doesn't understand the GST beyond this idea that it's going to simplify the tax, the indirect tax system, and through that very process of simplification, give a boost to manufacturing. So I think this is the problem.
Abhishek Singhvi, do you want to respond to that? What Siddharth Varadarajan is saying is that in fact the country will perceive that Congress has put polemical partisan politics ahead of the nation's interest, and in the process you've also behaved hypocritically. You're not going to gain by this. You're going to lose credibility, respect and support at a time when already you only got just 44 seats.
Well, to the extent it is an esoteric subject and highly technical subject, I agree with him. And therefore, relatively few people will take interest in it. But those who do know well how every BJP ruled state, led by the Prime Minister's state, opposed it tooth and nail. Our objections are very different. Our objections are mainly about state shares and exclusion of items like petrol, etc.
No, but it's how you're pursuing them that I'm talking about. And there you're pursuing them with revenge in mind.
Well, No, this committee will be over, but at the most the delay is what? A month or 2 months. Just consider, Karan.
Why should there be a delay in a matter of national interest at all?
2.5 years. Mr. Pranab Mukherjee made Sushil Modi the chairman. Even then there was a delay.
All right.
Gujarat opposite tooth and nail. There is no delay. We are saying please consider these things. If you agree in committee, yes. If you don't agree, let's talk about it. That's what we have a right. And we are not the only one. The AIDMK is so strongly close to the BJP that has the same view.
I hear your defense of yourself. I still feel that people will sense that what lies behind this defense is in fact not the specific issues you're concerned about, but the sweetness of revenge delivered so credibly. Let me bring in Naresh Gujral, because Naresh, you were honest enough to say that both sides have mishandled the Rajya Sabha, and as a result, national interest is suffering. Now, you can't advise the UPA, but you're a very close ally of the NDA and you can advise them. What would your advice be to them in terms of handling the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, where repeatedly the Rajya Sabha majority against them is holding up their legislation? What would be your advice to the BJP leadership?
Well, I think it is the duty of the ruling party to ensure that the Rajya Sabha functions. I mean, for that matter, Parliament functions. But since we are in minority in Rajya Sabha, I'm saying Rajya Sabha functions. And I think this realization is coming in as far as the BJP leadership is concerned. So now they're treating the opposition with more kid gloves. And I hope they continue to do so that there is some kind of cooperation and important bills which are holding up growth, which are holding up job creation, which are holding up expansion of business can be passed quickly.
Why aren't people like you, Naresh Gujral, involved in helping the BJP? Why don't the Venkaiah Naidus and the Arun Jaitlis get your help? Because you have great relations across the whole width of the spectrum of politics in the Rajya Sabha. Why don't they use you?
I can't answer that for you.
But
that's for the BJP to decide, and whenever they seek my help, I'm always available.
But you're also saying by implication that up till now in breaking the logjam, they haven't sought your help.
Well, I think in the last week or so, everybody is playing their little role, and that's why I said I'm optimistic that things will be better in the next session.
All right, gentlemen, let's hope that optimism proves to be actually factual and the end result justifies the optimism. My thanks to all my guests for joining me.